Hello, everybody, and welcome to Game Masters Under Dark, where three game masters get together to answer your questions about tabletop gaming. As always, I am Will, one of your game masters and the newest out of the three of us. I'm joined, as always, by Matt R. Matt, how you doing?
Doing okay.
And with some technical difficulties, we have Matt H. You guys can all see his name now, but for the audio listeners, we'll keep it out. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. My technology is not.
Yes. But hey, at least you were able to join us. So these things happen. Housekeeping, as always, guys. We appreciate you watching us here on YouTube. And of course, if you're looking just for the audio format, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, we're pretty much everywhere that you can listen to podcasts. If you're looking, you can check the description or the channel banner on our page for all the links to get all that. That being said, you guys ready to go ahead and get started with tonight's show?
I'm prepared as well as I normally.
I'ma just wing it.
All right, sounds good to me. So the topic we're going to discuss tonight is problem players, and that means different things to different DMs. Also means different things to different players. So we're just going to kind of discuss what we view as players that present a type of problem. It doesn't mean that like you necessarily you're trying to kick them from the game or anything, but just something that presents you as a DM and potentially other players with a problem that you may not be necessarily ready to handle. One of you guys want to start this, or
you want to go, Matt?
Yeah, sure. So problem players. The problem players that I've dealt with have mainly revolved around people that purposely disrupt the narrative that's happening. These are the players where they, the group decides to go out on a mission, and then as they're making their way out of town, one of the players just decides to start randomly killing NPCs because they can, or they think it's funny. I've been in a game where a mayor asked to bring in the heads of bandits as proof of killing them, and one of the players had a bright idea of just going around town cutting off people's heads because they thought it would be funny to have their character think that, they were just paying for heads. So that's obviously very disruptive to the narrative that's going on, and just something that you can tell somebody is doing to purposely try to disrupt and derail the game. If it was an honest mistake or they genuinely, didn't understand what was going on, that would have been one thing. But the problem players that I've dealt with the most are people that know what they're supposed to do or know what the goal is, and then purposely do something against the rest of the party, and just something to throw a monkey wrench into everyone's day.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see where that's a problem. Even though D&D is a lot about choices, when you choose to ruin someone's story, nobody's having fun.
Yeah.
Nobody's having fun.
And that's like a big one. Like that's a big, like almost world record decision. Like you're killing like NPCs that like kind of like mean something. And that's something when I've seen like new players just have trouble saying no to. So because like you've been sold to this idea as a DM of like, oh, your players have the freedom to do whatever they want. Then when you have that problem player and you're a new DM, it's hard to say, no, you can't do that. And so sometimes they're just like, okay, roll for it. And you're hoping for a bad roll so they don't do it, but they inevitably succeed. Now the whole party has to deal with it. And so, like, you got to set boundaries and be like, haha, that's funny, man. But no, that's not happening.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something I'm slowly learning. I think I've gotten a little better about, no. I think Matt, you even joked last week where you were like, we were setting up a game and another player wanted to know something, and I was like, no, I don't want you guys to know that. And Matt was like, you're coming into your own, and I'm like, well, because it makes the story better if you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, but for the longest time, I would go to you guys, and hey, what do you guys think about this? And I still do quite a bit, but I've noticed that question far less in our group chat because it's kind of like, no, if I want to do it, it's my game. I'll do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So Matt, what about you? Obviously, we all agree with that. Wrecking the story. But what about you? Is there something else you consider to be like
I mean,
a problem?
problems for me when a player wants to be a little disruptive when it comes to story. I'm talking a little disruptive, not like let's just kill everybody and the whole party's like let's not. A little disruptive would be like they maybe have a specific goal in mind and that nobody else in the party wants to do that, but they're the only person that does. And that said, maybe they're pushy about it, maybe they're not pushy about it. It can go either way. But the way I see that is this player clearly has a motive for their character. They've thought of this motive from the birth of their character, maybe. And if I don't play to that in some way, and then I think that's just on me. So like when I have a disruptive player that wants to be disruptive, I try to turn that problem into like a story thing, and it's like just a thing I do. I know, calling back to a game that I played years ago, a player was a little disruptive because simply he wanted to be kind of a bad guy, but everybody else wanted to be heroes, like superheroes. And this guy was like, I'm not that. And it made it kind of hard because, yeah, I mean, that kind of hero does exist. Somebody who's not like your stereotypical Superman. But like everybody else was kind of playing it around the Superman identity. And so this guy didn't. And so when it came to like choices, it was hard, and then made it hard with the group dynamics and stuff. He just didn't want to play that kind of hero. And I got it. And so what I ended up doing is just making a little special story for him to just veer him emotionally to the path that everybody else was on. And how I did that was just simply I created an NPC that he cared about, that he suddenly had feelings for, and that NPC looked out for him the way that he wanted people to look out for him. And it just played right into his character to the point where when something happened to that NPC, suddenly he's on the same mind track as everybody else in the party. They're like, we need to save this and do this thing. And he's like, of course we do, because that person I care about's there. And so all I did was just incorporate his emotions about his character into the game, and just played with it for like a session or two. Then I realized what his bonds were, and I was able to play with that. But so like when it comes to like problem characters, I try to work with them a lot, like sometimes a little bit more than others, because others are given the story that they want, whereas others I have to find that story that they want. And that's sometimes kind of hard. You just have to have a conversation with the players or just read them very well, which can be hard.
Yeah, no, that definitely, especially if they're not like super engaged right away.
I mean, that's we talked about session zero, but like you can also have those kind of conversations after games and just be like, hey man, I know we talked about how we wanted the first session to go. It went well, I think, but it would seem like your character wants something else. Tell me what you want so I can work with you.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense, and I know I I try to make a habit of that. I think I've done that after every game I've done with you guys, whether it was from a pre-written campaign or the one we just started. I'm always like, I think that went well. What do you guys think? And you actually gave me some feedback the other day on it, and you're like, hey, I think you could have done this different. And part of it was you might still be able to hear. You guys know I've been sick for like the last week, so it was like,
Oh yeah,
uh,
that was a sick day.
yeah. So I was like, yeah, but I also like accepted that. I was like, you're right. I'm feeling sick, so I wasn't as engaged, but
Mhm.
I appreciated the feedback nonetheless because without it, it's not something I would have been conscious about. So yeah, I definitely think having those conversations after your sessions are just as, if not more important than a session zero, as important as that is. 'Cause
I mean, the only other problem players I ever had were like liars that just lie about their dice, and I mean that's I feel like that's inevitable when you're a DM. Like you'll face it at least once. You'll know about it at least once,
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
and that you can tackle that kind of situation differently from all kinds of ways.
yeah. I think I've been spoiled because I've started running games digitally. Like I've never done one in person really. So
Yeah,
it's it's like,
digital makes
oh,
it almost impossible to find out unless you guys all do it on the same software.
yeah, and that's the lovely thing. I think we talk about it kind of like we've talked about session zero, D&D Beyond. Again, not a sponsor, but like it's cool because you can see the game log and everyone can see your dice.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
there's no lying about it. Like you were saying, it's like roll whatever. Oh, I got a nat 20. It's not in the chat, so you're gonna have to do that again. And
Yeah, I never thought about like, well, because I mean, like, doing it all entirely digitally is new, but like, I never thought about like definitely enforcing like put in the log, otherwise it don't count.
well, but like when we had an add-on that we won't discuss, for that between D&D Beyond and another piece of software, it would just come up as custom roll. And I told you guys, I was like, hey, if you just like disable that, it fixes it. But even before we figured that out, you guys would be like, I don't know why it's this, but I rolled, perception or whatever it was. And I just, like you were saying, as long as we were all honest about what it was,
Yeah, yeah.
that's fine. We can deal with it from there. So I will say my personal problem players are the ones that just don't engage. Um, we talked about this with Beyond the Wild Beyond the Witchlight coming out. I was a theater kid. I grew up singing in choirs and stuff. So like I like to act. I like to engage. And when you're trying to engage, whether as a DM or player to player, and somebody's just not meeting you, even a little bit, like it seems like they're just kind of there. For me, that's the problem. For me, it's a problem because it's like, how do you address that? Because if somebody doesn't want to engage, if they don't want to engage, that's different than I'm not sure how to engage. So
Yeah, I've
always figuring out where do you fall in that spectrum. If you're a new player, it may be it's more likely to be I'm not sure what to do, but a veteran player might just be like, no, I'm just not feeling it. And then it's like, oh, damn.
and I think that's sometimes that's like I've seen that a lot. Especially I've played games where the whole entire parties were like, yeah, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't want to say anything. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll just like take the story from them and like have some NPCs jump in and stuff. But like sometimes it's just like, yeah, I think it's a mixture of both like new players saying, um, I don't know what to do, and then veteran players saying, I don't want to do anything. So it's like suddenly you're stuck at the stalemate. I've
Right.
never, and it's always how I fixed that was simply just like, okay, and then something happens because nobody said anything. And it could be bad, it could be good, it could go either way.
Yeah, what do you
Matt's
think
a
about
lot.
that? Oh,
Yeah, Matt's a lot nicer when it comes to that sort of stuff because I've straight up told a character to make a new character for refusing to engage.
Dang.
I explained the world, and I sort of ran it like an old school RPG where it's just like, hey, this is the main quest. Like, this is what your characters are trying to stop. Like, there's going to be a ton of side quests and you can do other stuff, but like, this is the main point of the game.
Mhm.
And I was very explicit in saying, make a character who wants to stop this thing from happening. You can have any reason, but your character has to wants to stop this thing that's about to happen that's going to end the world, basically. So everybody showed up. One dude showed up with a chef who refused to leave the town that they were from because he cooked at a shop there, and every time they had to leave for something to go stop the real big bad thing, he said the thing that is a personal pet peeve of mine and something I hate hearing is my character wouldn't do that.
Oh,
That's like nails on a chalkboard to me, because what that conveys to me and how I've seen that used is I basically built an anti-party, anti-story character, so deal with it. That's how I've seen that used. I have seen that phrase weaponized to justify bad player behavior.
yeah. No, I think I've said it once, and when the three of us when we were
I mean,
playing,
like,
and I've been like, I feel like this is what my character would do, but I try to phrase it like that, where it's like, I think this is what I would do, but if
But-
if it feels like it hurts the story, I'm like,
that's
maybe
it.
I can still do it, but maybe I need to find a gentler way about doing it. Or
I think if it hurts the story and you feel like you're saying that, that's the problem. But if you say, I feel like my character would do this, you're actively thinking about somebody else because you're role playing. And that's okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you're like, I'm not going to go do the mission because that's not what my character would do, and be like, okay, that's the game.
Yeah, I feel like Matt and I have very different opinions on this because Matt, you have been very lucky and you haven't had to play with some of the problem players that I've had to
Yes.
deal with, because I have played with some really bad people in my time. So I'm a little bit harder on people when it comes to stuff like this because I've dealt with it before, and it's one of those things where you have to establish boundaries and nip it in the bud right then and there, because if you give a problem player an inch, they're going to take another one, and then another one, and another one, and then they're going to ruin your fun, and then they're going to ruin the other character's fun, and then people are going to stop showing up, and then it's going to be you by yourself waiting for everybody to get on a Zoom call and nobody shows up. So,
yeah.
Yep.
I've definitely heard some horror stories from from you. When
I'm a jaded old man.
right. Well, that being said, though, these are all things that, to varying degrees, like I said, some of the stuff I haven't necessarily had to deal with being new, but I'm sure other DMs have, even new ones. But I have a very important question that is something that I don't think I've asked you guys before. Um, this is going to kind of be broken down into several parts, but if only one person complains about another player, so say like I was only complaining about one of you, or any one of the order of the three of us, like just one person was complaining about them, do you consider that to be a problem player, or as I've made some notes here for this, does the type of complaint matter, and do you consider their out of game relationship when trying to look at if this is a legit complaint? Like, sometimes you might play with people that you don't necessarily get along with, and if somebody does something that you just don't, if that person does something you don't agree with, you might complain just because you don't like them. Or you know what I mean? Like, this is kind of a
Okay.
nuanced question, I think. But
Every concern that any player brings to the DM should be a legit concern. And that said, the relationship outside of the game, if you don't think it's a legit concern and you just kind of ignore it, that could be very stressful for whoever rose that question.
Okay.
It is definitely a case by case basis at that point, because somebody complaining about somebody being a problem player who is not, the person complaining could be a problem player by doing that, by basically stirring the pot and creating drama where there really is none. So you really have to look at that on a case by case basis. Like, if somebody is like, hey, I don't like the silly voice this character is doing, that's not a justifiable concern. Like, it's their character, it's their voice. If they want to do a silly voice, like, just let them do a silly voice. It's fine.
And
But
I've
if
heard
somebody's like,
concern. Sorry.
but if somebody's playing like the cleric of the group and they're the only healer and they're like, hey, I notice every time I go down in combat, like, Bob is just over there using Sacred Flame while I'm making death saving throws the entire time, but when somebody else goes down, he immediately heals them. Like, what's that all about? So that might be something you want to discuss one-on-one with the other player. Maybe talk to both of them at the same time. Maybe they're just not clicking because there's just a communication failure on their part and they can smooth it out themselves. But it's definitely a case by case basis, because there's a lot of different factors going on when it's one person complaining about one other person and not the whole group doing it.
Yeah, and when you address those concerns, like you brought up doing it individually, I think that's great. Doing it individually when it's like a mechanic thing, like how you're talking about, like, or I guess it would be an action thing when you were talking about how, like, healing people when they're not. You can might maybe talk to one on one with this person, be like, hey, do you know about these spells and what they did, and how that could have helped you in the last encounter, like, just so we can like go over anything that may have been missed, or that you don't like realize that you're actually very good at. Like, you could be very good at this specific thing where other players are not. Like, there might be something that you could go over, maybe something that wasn't talked about in Session Zero that could be explained a little further. But also, I talked about cheating, because that's like really the only concern that's ever been brought up to me. Like, somebody else came up to me and was like, hey, I noticed so and so was cheating. And I was like, well, that's not fun. Let's try to fix that. And the easiest way I fixed it was, instead of like having a one-on-one with the person, or even singling them out in any way, like in front of people or in a chat or whatever, I just said next time we played, I was just like, hey guys, we're just gonna roll in this box. Roll in a box, roll in a dice tower if you have one, and just like, that's just how we're gonna roll. Even myself as a DM, though my rolls can be secret, I'm gonna do it too, because that's a faith thing. And so, and that doesn't always work out. Some people will get mad, and in this case, it would just happen to be like a whole thing where I said, hey guys, roll in the tower, and then somebody was like, somebody's cheating, and it was just like, whoa, that's not what I said. And I was like, whoa. So it can backfire. But I mean, like, as a DM, I feel like you're a mediator. And I know sometimes when you first join the hobby, you're like, hey, we're just doing fun game stuff. And then you slowly start to realize, I also have to mediate.
Yeah,
and that could be difficult.
Yeah, I definitely think I've been lucky. Like, I have a lot of management experience, like managing people. So it's like, oh, I have to utilize these skills for a game that I didn't think I'd have. Like you said, I was like,
Mhm.
Matt tried to warn me when I first started. I think this was before I met you, and I was like, it can't be that bad. And then I'm like, oh no. I think I even texted him. We were both at work, and I was like, "No, you were right. This is that bad. Oh God."
This is the
Buckle up.
yeah.
And I didn't mean it in like a negative way. I think it's like a lot of things in life. When somebody tells you something, you're like, it can't be that bad. And then it's like, oh, dear, to steal a line from Talladega Nights, dear Lord, baby Jesus.
Right.
It's just,
Like, I mean, I feel like
it's not what I thought.
every DM's gonna have that it might not even be a problem, but just something where like, oh, I didn't know playing this fantasy game was going to be me trying to mediate just a debate that's happening. It might be a heated debate, but I mean, like nobody's upset at each other, but you're suddenly put in a position where you're like, well, I have to make the ultimate decision, and that could be hard.
Well, and not to kind of put you on the spot a little bit, like that actually happened last night when we were playing, where I was like, I want to use a spell to do this, and somebody was like, the spell can't really do that, and they were not wrong.
Yeah, they were not wrong.
But it says this here, and then we started to get into a debate on, well, what is the size of the individual in question, and like you eventually were just like, you know what, man, it's for role play, it's fine, let it go, and like we just moved on, and it was one of those where I never thought that was going to be a discussion we were going to have to.
I mean,
I would just like to bring it up. It wasn't me, even though I was the mechanics guy. It was a role play thing. I was going to let it slide.
Yeah,
Wasn't me. Will and I are friends.
The thing
Just wanted
is,
to get that out there.
Well, and I didn't know, and being again, I say being new. I've only been playing the game for maybe like less than a year at this point, or a little over a year at this point.
I like.
There's still times where I misunderstand or I don't read the spell all the way,
Mhm.
and that's really genuinely what happened. But then when I was like, oh, I can't, I went back and reread it, and then that's when I started getting on my
Right.
hill I was going to die on.
And when it comes to me as a DM, because I don't know everything in the fucking book. Oh, look, we got our first one for today, guys. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
You were
I
almost
felt
five,
it.
You got about
It was,
5
it
minutes
was
left.
tingling.
We almost
I had to get it out, man. Anyways, so I don't know every rule in the book. And so when my players say, hey, that's not how that works, I generally like, well, how does it work? And so once it was explained to me how it works, I was just like, I don't care. You can do what you want. Because I was like, yeah, I don't, it doesn't matter in this case. Like if it was like a big decision or maybe even something like kind of messed up my game, I'd be like, no. But in this case, it was a little thing and I didn't care.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I think we all do, or at least if not, I'm telling on myself. But the three of us, when it comes to casting certain spells, if it's a pure role play thing, not like you said, like a big thing, like I don't make you guys use your spell slots, like
Yeah.
because it's a role play thing. And sometimes, like last night, just for context, I was a fairy trying to pick up a child with mage hand. Like that's funny.
Okay. I feel like there needs to be more context to that sentence.
Yeah.
A child
Please, Will.
A child trying to break into the carnival. We started playing Wild Beyond the Witchlight last
And
night.
you were working security. And you were like, hey, where's your ticket, fool?
So,
Good.
And I bring that up just because it is really recent, but it is a good example of like you were saying, like if you had told me I couldn't do that, no big deal. I misread the spell. That's my fault. But then when you said I could, I was like, all right, cool, like whatever. And then I used Tasha's hideous laughter on his friend who got away from me the first time. You know, stuff like that where mechanically it's not breaking anything. You know, like you said, I think, yeah, whatever, let it go. But not everybody plays that way. And if I was at a table where they said no, you used a spell slot, you did this, all right, respect that ruling. That's not my game.
Yeah, and that's something that could be talked about right now is if the players don't respect your ultimate decision, that's a problem player. That's a problem player.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're down the last couple minutes here, but I think that's worth discussing. At the end of the day, like you said, you are the DM, and or like you said, yeah, you're the DM. And there's been times where something has come up And I'm like, I don't know if that's how that works. When we did Waterdeep, and one of our players, she's a druid, and a bunch of damage was done. We were all like, I don't know how that works. And I'd never run a game with somebody playing a druid like who wild shaped. So I was like, okay, we actually need to figure this out because this could mean player death. And remember, I was like, time out. This is a rule that needs to be double checked. But if it was a small thing, I would have been like, no big deal. But you guys were all like, yeah, let's take the time to do this right because, like I said, this could be somebody re-rolling a character. So, and at the end of the day, when I said like, yeah, this is how it works, even she was like, okay, that's fine. That's how it works. That's how it works. Can't change it. So, but if the player in question had put up a fight, it probably would have been a different conversation. But I think that's a big thing being a problem player. Don't be that person that argues with the DM, even if you think they're wrong, even if you know they're wrong. In the middle of the game, that's not the time to have that discussion.
Mhm.
Wait till after session.
I don't care if lightning bolt is a line spell. If I'm the DM and says it's a 50-foot sphere around you and that's how I run it, that's how lightning bolt works in the world. I control the world.
Well,
I've laid the hammer down when I'm the DM.
I was gonna say, if you're gonna make that rule, I got a couple spells to change it on a character. But yeah, so I think that ultimately, when you say problem, I kind of made that a broad thing. Everybody's ideal of what a problem is different. Everybody has different solutions. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the one thing we've hammered on more than anything, communicate, please.
And respect each other.
Yes, respect.
That's the biggest. Y'all can joke around and have as much fun and like mess with each other and pick fun at each other, but at the end of the day, like you should don't let somebody not do something because you don't like it. It's like that person's having fun.
Yeah, and I think that's something we've hinted at a lot, but we actually haven't come out and said it. So Matt's definitely right. Respect is huge. If you can't respect, I don't care if it's your DM, your fellow players, whoever it is, like you have to show that respect. It's you expect it, given to you. You have to give it. I think that's the best advice.
Best way to show me respect is bring me food. So whenever you guys come out to Oregon, I expect something, and I will respectfully eat it.
Okay. Well, are we planning a road trip, Matt? Is there something you can tell me?
I'm just
take a week off of work.
I'm just hungry.
Well, that's time, guys. This one was I like this topic because again, I know I hit on a lot of things for newer DMs. It's probably my bias when I'm looking for questions, but I feel like a lot of times they're the ones who have the questions. And this is one where you might have to be careful, like Matt said, how you phrase it. Sometimes no matter how you phrase it, somebody's going to get upset. But it's better to address a problem, I feel like, head on, whether it's in a group, one-on-one, whatever that is. I personally feel, I don't know how, I feel just address it. Because if not, it's going to make things a lot worse in the long run. And as for those on YouTube, the non-visible Matt said,
the invisible Matt.
The non-visible Matt.
You're not invisible.
I like that descriptor.
That's what happens when you talk to somebody who just finished his communications homework. But he's right. If you don't address it, it can eventually lead to a bigger problem, and then people just not showing up, and that's not fun. We always want to. So before we shut this thing down for this week, you guys have any other thoughts or anything else?
I felt like respect each other was a good thing. We can put that on a shirt. I mean, that's probably trademarked. I don't know.
I don't run lightning bolt the way how I described it. I just
Disclaimer
that out there. Disclaimer: please don't run lightning bolt like that in your game. Err on the side of raw.
People will not show up the next game.
People will not show up. I won't show up. Just kidding. I totally will. I can think of some builds that use that. But
I swear to God, you're gonna use it in my next game.
yeah,
You're
I'm gonna be like, hey Matt, I have this new idea. Can I run the spell this way?
I was gonna go Thor with
know-
a hammer like in a Infinity War.
I'm the only person that would let you do that. You know.
Yeah, probably. All righty, guys. Well, as always, it's been fun talking with you guys, and hopefully, you guys listening enjoyed the topic for this week. If you have any questions or anything that you would like answered, leave a comment down below. We'll take a look at it, and we'll definitely we'll definitely either make a video out of it or we'll answer.
We definitely will, because nobody's left a comment yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will be
Actually,
so
yeah.
excited.
We got one. I responded to it today. I know.
You should tell us
Well, look, there's a lot I haven't told. We haven't had a chance to sit down and look.
what secret.
Shout them out. Shout them out, Will.
Oh God, I don't have the info. I'm so sorry. Can I do it next week? Will you not be mad?
No, you gotta do it right now. Me and Matt will make a not dead air right now.
Okay, you guys make not dead air while I look.
Pokemon Fire.
Oh no, sorry, MDB.
Matt, how have you solved a problem player issue?
The most extreme way is I've asked somebody not to show up to the group anymore.
That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah, but there comes a certain point where you just got to recognize that some people just don't click with your group, and if you get to that point where other people are starting to threaten to not show up anymore, I mean, you got to do what you got to do in those scenarios. I took no pleasure in asking the person not to show up anymore, but sometimes it's just one of those things,
All right. I've been lucky to where those problem players have realized nobody's having fun with me playing, and they just left.
Oh.
And I mean, which sucks for me because there was like no closure. And so I was like, hey, like I maybe addressed it to them a few times, like, hey, this was happening. And then they just left and stopped showing up. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess problem solved, just not in a nice, neat bow.
So I found it. Purple Jib Wakes. Thank you so much for our very first comment. We appreciate it. It was
That's me, bro.
Hey, I don't know who these people are.
It's me. Am I our first comment?
You really are.
I know who our second comment's about to be then. I think I'm just Matt Harrison on YouTube, so it's just going to be super obvious.
Well, there you go, Liz. Gave you
like
ways.
Purple Jib Wicks, you have been a great fan. And I'm like, dude.
See, this is what happens. Look, y'all told me to do it. Yeah, I'm doing it. This is what the people came here for.
What did that mega fan say?
Matt, congratulations, you played yourself.
Okay.
You know what? We're gonna leave it on that. We're gonna leave it a mystery. We'll let you guys.
Y'all can visit the YouTube channel, figure out what I had to say. It's some dumb stuff.
Find the comment, y'all.
Alrighty, guys. Well, as always, if you enjoyed the video or the podcast, like, comment, subscribe. Obviously, we check them out, but we don't know who everybody is. Again, if you want the audio version, Spotify, Google, iTunes, we're pretty much everywhere at this point. And we will see you guys next week. Have a good weekend and happy gaming.
Adios.
See you guys later.
Send Matt food.